if you're in a bad situation. And
So what's stopping you from doing what you love?
most people, money. Because what they love doesn't pay. Because what they love doesn't pay. And they got to pay the bills.
Do my own brand eventually. But I mean, Twizza was so entrenched at that point in time. I was kind of like forced to buy the brand from them, which is, you know, a bit of school.
I didn't know that part of the story. So
Yeah, so I had to buy the brand name from them, which I created, by the way.
Oh.
So, but
how does that work? Wait, just explain it.
And I parked next to this guy who obviously recognized me. I didn't know him.
Yeah.
And he's sitting in his car and he's got an ANC t-shirt on. And he says to me, guys, you know? And I
This is very good. I didn't know you could.
and I'm not a politician, but if I can contribute meaningfully, because I know how to run a business, and a municipality is actually the simplest business in the world to run because there's no opposition. And I think you want to differentiate between money and wealth.
Yeah. What's the difference?
You cannot earn wealth. You can only earn money, but you can create wealth. Wealth is something that's long-lasting. It's a value of a business. It's kind of like you're born with it, almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's something that, to a certain extent, you can't teach. Like, you know, some people are made to be an employee. They need the guidance and the leadership. Point them in the right direction, and they fly. But if you burden them with the task of making decisions that they feel ill-equipped to take, you land up in a situation where nothing happens and you spiral downwards very quickly.
So for those of you who don't know, those of you who will be listening and watching this, I barely do introductions of the guest that we spend some time with. But I'm sitting here today with a man that doesn't need any introduction. But for those of you not familiar with this faith, you're fairly private to a certain extent. I don't know why. Maybe we'll speak a bit about that, right? But I'm sitting here with Mr. Glenn Clark, owner and founder of Twizza and Crickley Dairy Farm. And there's some notes that I made on some of the stuff that I saw. You'll let me know whether these things are correct or not. Okay. But you founded Twizza in 2003. Took you about 5 months to get everything up and running, and that's very exceptional. Founded Crickley Dairy in 1984 in Indwe, South Africa, and operations were later moved to Queenstown in 1996, right? Yeah. And what I've seen in the news most recently is everyone is reporting on how you employ 1,000+ people. I'm not sure what the stats are now. Is it 1,000? Is it more? Is it less?
No, look, so I think between the companies, it's probably just a bit less than that.
Is it?
But you know, what you've also got to take into consideration is, you know, what are the people, you know, that, for instance, we outsource quite a lot of trucking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you insourced all that, you know, so physically on the payroll, it's less than 1,000, but not far less. But if you look at, you know, the whole outsource model that we do, we touch a lot more lives than that, if you know what I'm saying.
No, most definitely. Yeah. How does it feel, by the way, seeing all of your products here? And you actually, you know, before we started, were drinking one of the Twizzas. How does that feel?
It's awesome.
Is it like normal to you, or is
it's normal?
Or do you take some time and say like, wow, look at you know what I've done?
I think, for me, to be honest, it feels normal. I know there's some really kind of like, a lot of people say you've got a lot of guts to do some of the things that you did, you know, and yes, but for me it was calculated, you know. I mean, take a guy like Elon Musk. Yeah. You know, just look at that.
Oh, you're a big fan?
I'm a huge fan of this guy. I'm a huge fan of this guy. And you know why? I'm a fan of how he thinks.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of how he crystallizes what a challenge is and how to sort that problem out. I mean, you know, this guy has put into space this year something equivalent to 1,000 tons worth of satellites and Starlinks, and whatever. You know, 1,000 tons is 40 interlinks. I mean, in what, 9 months? I mean, it's almost irrational. You know, it's like, it's never been done.
Have you met Elon Musk?
No.
Not yet. Not yet.
No, I don't think I'm in that league.
Look, I know you've spoken a lot about how you started your businesses, but for the benefit of our audience that might not know who you are and the type of work that you've done, let's go back to the 1980s and how it is that you started and how the early days were, and then take us back to 2003 with Twizza. What happened?
Okay, so I think basically I'm the son of a farmer. My dad was a farmer, and you know, back in the day, it was kind of like almost a disgrace for the son not to continue what your father was doing, if you know what I'm saying, you know. So I started with a little farm. So it was eventually only about 800 hectares and milking a few cows. And I realized that I'm never going to it's difficult to buy more ground. And, you know, it's a slow...
Is it a farm that your dad gave you, or...?
So I never got it for nothing, you know. I mean, we bought the farm, and there was debt on the farm. But obviously, when you buy a farm, you know, the prices sometimes fluctuate. And shortly after I got onto the farm, the price of land increased quite a bit. So, you know, your debt to the value was still high, but I mean, I had debt to pay off, you know, and that's difficult, you know. It confines your ability to grow. And eventually I decided, so a guy came to me. I was supplying milk to the Dairy Bell Dordrecht cheese factory at the time. And within a short while, I became one of their biggest producers. And then a guy came to buy milk, and he was selling it in Indwi. And eventually wanted to sell me the business. And I looked at it and I decided, no, this is a Mickey Mouse business. I can do better than this. And so I started Crickley.
What made you say it's a Mickey Mouse business?
I looked at it. I just looked at it. It had one customer, and it's just too much risk.
Yeah.
You know? I say
How much was he asking for?
I think it was like 12 grand or something.
12 grand.
But then a bucky used to cost you like 5 to 7 grand. You know, so I mean, you know, it's all relevant, you know, relative.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, I started that and literally used to go and drive myself and peddle milk in the Transkei, you know, and eventually I got a driver. And so we started to grow, and eventually that became bigger, and I hired a building from another guy for 5 years, and then that became too small, and then I bought another building, which was 3 times the size, and then that became too small, and then we moved to Queenstown.
So that was, what year was that? 1996, when you moved to
1994, I started farming in 1980, and then I started Crickley Dairy in 94, June of 94.
All right.
Yeah.
When was that turning point when you realized that this could potentially be big, like with the Crickley Dairy business?
So
what was happening at that stage?
So I really got on top of the selling milk, mainly bulk milk, most of it raw at that stage, into the Transkei. And then eventually we put in a pasteurizer, and we made the pasteurized mass. And then that really took off, and then got to a point where
yours is my favorite, by the way.
Yeah.
And my son is 5 years old, and that's the only mass that he wants.
It's the best in the country. That's it.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then I think a turning point came when I tried to hire farm managers, and that didn't work. And eventually I sold my farm.
All right.
And I decided for everybody to know that, you know, it was a point that, you know, I could have gone bankrupt at that point in time, because we'd bought the farm, you know, at a high price, and then prices plummeted. We had political, you know, instability.
What year was it?
It was, I bought in 89, And I sold in '95, I think. And then moving to Queenstown, I was getting most of my milk from the Craddock area, and then a lot of the milk was coming back into the Queenstown area. So you had a double dead leg of transport, you know. So and one of my main opposition guys, who was in Queenstown, in the same building where Crickley is now, retired, and because Benita took over United Dairies, and they said, "I'm sorry, but we're not going to need your services anymore." So he had a building that he had nothing to, he didn't have work for. Anyway, I got that for a decent price, and then grew the business. It was going very well, but I was frustrated by the fact that I thought, or to me, in my calculations, the manufacturers of packing material were making all the margin. They knew the price of milk, they knew the price in the store, and they would know how much they could squeeze you for and make you the busy fool, if you like, you know. So I said to myself, I have to find a solution to this problem. And a friend of mine took me to Krugersdorp, and I saw an Indian guy who had the most basic of PET blow molding equipment. We had this guy sitting in front of this oven with a chain, and he would put a preform on a spindle, and he'd take it off with a welding glove, and he'd put it into this mold, press a pedal, and the bottle would come out.
Wow.
So, I mean, as archaic and as kind of like low end as it was an absolute light bulb moment, because it said to me, you can make your own bottle. So then I went overseas and looked at, the technology, and that in those years, PET was fairly new and wasn't as advanced as it is today. So we also bought some bottom of the pot kit, and eventually Twizza started that way. I was involved with my mate and his two Indian friends in Joburg, and we kind of like did it together. But then my side of it grew so much, and they weren't growing, and our brands were starting to meet in certain regions. So, and I said, you either up your game or I must buy this brand out, and you carry on and do your own thing, kind of thing.
Okay. So that, was he a business partner, or
no?
Was that for the Twizza business?
Yes.
Because you've always run these as two separate entities, right?
Yes. So my friend, had a stainless steel business.
All right.
And his partners were doing the Twizza. And he somehow had got involved with these guys, And so he introduced me to them. So we worked together for about three to 4 years. And then we started to say, no, listen, the branding, the marketing, the this, the that. There were a whole lot of things that just needed to be uplifted, to make it. And of course, the product was absolutely flying in the Transkei. And
the Twizza.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was also an easy kind of like launch, because I had Crickley going there anyway. So the trucks were there, my reps were there. I had people in trade. We had relationships with stores. We had a whole lot of things. We had an accounting system. All the things that people take for granted when you start a new business. I could piggyback on the back of the business I'd already created. And so that gave us, it kicked the door open, if you like, And the idea was that maybe I would, do my own brand eventually. But I mean, Twizza was so entrenched at that point in time. I was kind of like forced to buy the brand from them, which is, a bit of school.
I didn't know that part of the story. So
So I had to buy the brand name from them, which I created, by the way.
Oh.
So, but
how does that work? Wait, just explain that to me. So you created the name, and
I created the name, and then they said, well, if you want us to move aside, we're going to be happy, have to be happy with the payout, So,
so were they like your equity partners from the beginning?
No. They owned the brand, and we were separate businesses.
Two separate businesses.
But we had a kind of like a franchise type relationship, if you like.
I see.
You know, and it was very sort of sloppy and not very well structured. But anyway, you know, I had to buy the brand and then register the brand, register it in various countries. You know, you do all those formal things. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were early days and learning curves. You know.
And were you deliberate about going into, you know, townships and the rural areas, and
So
you know, what was the science behind that and your thought process?
So, you know, a lot of people might say, might give me credit for doing something which kind of happened by accident, I think,
Yeah.
if you like.
Yeah.
But the fact was, I took an opportunity. I saw an opportunity, and I leveraged the opportunity. And let me take you back to post 95, 94. You know, you had a relatively immobile population. You know, road infrastructure was there, but it wasn't as good as it is now, kind of thing.
Pre-94, that is.
Well, pre-94 and even post-94, even sort of like in the early or the late 1990s, you know. And the era of the taxi hadn't really taken off, you know. So it was mainly still buses and, you know, for a lot of not too many black people had their own vehicles. And then the spaza owners would have a bakkie and they'd go to the wholesaler and buy stock and bring it back. Now, our major opposition at that point in time wanted cold beverage just about on every street corner kind of thing, you know. But there's a cost attached to that. And so what happened here was, in effect, the mobilization of the community from a vehicle point of view and all of that, and the spaza shops that started cropping up everywhere, it created a market that kind of like wasn't there.
Yeah.
And really, if you go and analyze it, it took the cost out of the last mile. And the cost of the last mile is always the most expensive.
What is that? The last mile?
So the last mile is, let's say my product leaves a factory, and typically it would go to a wholesaler. Or I must now go and redistribute it in communities. Yeah. Delivering a truck is very profitable. Delivering 10 cases is not nearly as profitable. It's more labor intensive. Takes more time. Takes more. So that's what we call the last mile.
Okay.
So in other words, going off the main road into communities and starting to deliver into those communities. That's the last mile. And because you've got one product that you're delivering, essentially soft drink, you know, you don't have a basket of products that you can say, I can reduce the net cost of that last mile.
Yeah.
So effectively what happened was my customer and my consumer were acting as we're doing the last mile for free.
Got you.
You understand?
Got you.
Because that was adding so much value in their store because it was a lot cheaper than the opposition at that point in time.
Wow.
You understand?
Yeah.
So I mean, to anybody starting any business, the key is to understand your route to market.
Yeah.
And your key is to cost that route to market. You know, you need to be fully cognizant of where it is you can take cost out of the value chain.
Yeah.
And where the value chain is just too expensive for you to compete. And if you can't compete at the right price in that segment of the value chain, you must find an alternative. You understand? So I think that is...
It's a very important point. And even the writing that I was reading on the thesis that gentleman wrote, that was 10 years ago, that came out quite a lot. in the interviews that it did with you and some of your team members, and how you guys were deliberate about sort of in inverted quote unquote owning the whole value chain.
Yes.
To a certain extent.
So I think that we refer to it as vertical integration.
Vertical integration. Okay.
So what we took a packaging business and we bolted it onto a bottling business, and we took a transport business and bolted it onto the packaging business and distributed to the customer. So, very often those could be three separate businesses.
Yeah, correct.
And
are those three different, like separate divisions in your business?
Yes.
So, okay. So you'd get a person that heads the bottling business, and okay,
it's a completely different skill set to marketing, for instance.
Yeah. So how are your companies structured? I'm not sure if I'm allowed to ask that, but
It's very simple. We've got a Clark Holdings, which owns the companies, and above that is the family trust, which owns the holding company, and then you get Crickley Dairy and Twizza. And that's as simple as it
Clarks
gets.
and Sons, where does that come in?
Clark and Sons is a brand. It's part of the Twizza brand range, and it was conceived by my son, Lyle, and he thought it would be a nice kind of legacy brand, to establish.
What type of brand? Like
So it's actually just mixes, your tonics and your soda waters and that kind of stuff,
right. So you've got the trust, then you've got the holding, and then the two separate, right?
Yes.
So do you have a board, or
Yes.
so where does that fit into all of?
So we have an overarching board at Clark Holdings.
All right.
And that consists of myself, my two sons, and two non-executive. We had three non-executive directors, but we will be back to three again in the not too distant future. And really a board is there for governance purposes, to make sure that your banks, your consumers, to make sure that you follow regulatory procedures.
Yeah.
And governance is a very important part
Yeah.
of business today. And there's certain things that you simply have to do. And obviously some board members have skills which are different to my skills.
Yeah.
And then, they would bring that to the party in sitting on certain committees, et cetera.
Then you'd have two CEOs of the two separate businesses, or is it?
Yes.
Okay. C-suite leadership, how does that, your executives, what's that looking like?
They appoint their own C-suites,
Okay.
and it would be... So what we've done to a large extent, if you look at the businesses, most of the people who are sitting on C-suite have come through the system.
Oh, okay.
So you'll start, let's say, as a junior, work your way up. And obviously, the faster you can climb the ladder, the quicker you're going to get to the top, and might result in you being as a part of the C-suite. Obviously, some specialized skills where you don't have that kind of depth within your organization, you would then recruit from outside. But it's always very important to make sure that the people that you recruit from outside fit in with the culture of the company. Because I think that's one thing that Twizza has got right, and particularly under Lyle's leadership, is, the culture of the company is, I think, in a very good space.
So currently, are you the chairperson of the board? Is that your official?
It's my official designation, yes.
So what does that look like? It's just how often does the board meet? Like once a quarter, or?
Yeah, once a quarter. But I stay in touch with my sons.
Awesome.
Almost on a daily basis.
Great.
So I just how's
And
it
do they
going?
bounce off stuff with you?
Yeah, they might bounce stuff off me, and I'm still quite involved on the technical side sometimes, but we've got a really strong guy in technical now too, so that might sort of diminish going forward. But, I've been responsible for building all the plants, and I understand them like the back of my hand. And I've got a knack for that kind of thing, So,
so you've got the Mpumalanga plant, right?
Yes.
Then you've got Cape Town.
Yes.
By the way, I heard, I was talking to a local person in Queenstown, and we're coming to you from Queenstown, and I'm not sure if we'll be able to show how the place looks like. I mean, the scenery is just beautiful. I was just checking the mountain there, and it's amazing. I heard from someone that there are talks of you guys relocating and moving
No, you can't.
moving to Cape Town.
No, it's only head office functions that have done that.
Oh, okay.
So, because as you've grown, we kind of like had a situation where we had a lot of senior members of staff dotted all over the country. Now, when you can't call your C-suite into a room and have a meeting with them, it becomes Zoom, and traveling becomes quite disruptive, and there's nothing that beats face-to-face. I mean, this wouldn't be the same if it was on Zoom kind of thing. So,
Definitely.
I think that was the primary, and then just from a connectivity point of view, being close to a major airport.
It
just makes
sense.
getting around the country a lot easier. And really, with young people in your business, they've got young families, and they, want to be with the kids, and so you want to make sure that you limit travel and that kind of thing.
So are your sons in Cape Town, or they?
My sons are in Cape Town. I'm here. I mean, Queenstown's still the biggest plant, and with the dairy here, it's by far the biggest site in operation.
Let's talk a bit about ownership, right? Because early on, so I'm in the business of training and development and leadership and all of that stuff, a bit of business coaching. I work a lot with smaller businesses. And early on, I started about 10 years ago.
Yes.
When I first started, there was someone that approached me that wanted to buy into the business.
Yes.
And I turned them down because I felt like I wasn't really sure of the value of the business and all of that. But a friend of mine said to me, it's always good to own 100%. Okay, he said, let me try and think. He said, it's not good to own 100% of nothing. Rather own 50%
of something than 100% of
yes,
nothing.
yes. He said something like that, and it got me thinking, right? So I was thinking about that last night in preparation for our conversation,
Yes.
like in terms of ownership and all of that. What I've read is you own everything. And, how important is that in terms of ownership? I'm not sure if you've had people that have come and approached you, the bigger brands. I mean, there's one particular brand that always swallowing up, emerging stars and stuff like that. Have you ownership?
So look, I think at a point we would probably look to get a outside partner in to step change growth at a point in time. But you have to choose your partner very, very, very carefully.
Yeah.
Got to have a track record, and he's got to bring something to the party. He's got to bring a skill that where he's better than you at a specific skill, that he can then, catapult your growth curve in a certain direction,
Yeah.
either from being in the beverage business themselves, where you got another sector and that you can take cost out of the value chain, because that's really, everybody thinks that business is rocket science. Business is actually frightfully simple. Very, very simple. A business only exists on the basis that it makes a profit. The minute a business stops making a profit, it loses its value. So you as an individual need to be able to say, so how do I add 20 grand's worth of value to somebody? And how can I charge him, let's say, 10 grand for that value? And that is still profitable for you. In other words, so you add more value than what are you getting back. And in doing so, he is going to want more because you are strengthening his ability to generate revenue. And he, in your doing that, he is giving you the ability to generate revenue. And as long as that relationship is profitable for both parties, then it is sustainable. The minute that relationship is not profitable for either party, it will fall apart.
Yeah.
And I think, the same is true of, taking on another partner. How do they add value? And to what extent do they add value? And to how much do you want that contribution in order to be bigger as a partner than you were as 100%?
Got you.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yes, you might say to yourself, you'd like to join forces with somebody. I'm just using an example that's very strong on HR and very strong on finance or whatever, and you're strong on, leadership. But as a team, you are a dynamic package. Then that would make sense. I don't know if I'm making sense to you.
Have you had organizations that have approached you and in the past?
Look, we have, and there's no doubt about it, But very often, it is for them to benefit out of what you've created rather than to be a symbiotic relationship that takes you to the next level. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah, I think there'll be a right time and a right place, but not in a rush.
Yeah.
And show me the color of your money. Show me what you can do. Show me, Then we talk. But I think we're in a good space, and also you want to position yourself correctly for that. And we've got spare capacity in our business, so we're looking to grow without having to spend, and that will be advantageous to us.
What is that, the Twizza side or
yes,
Okay.
Particularly the Twizza side.
Yeah, no. The ownership thing for me is it's very intriguing because I work with a lot of smaller businesses that are in partnerships and they're fighting their way to get out of the partnership, because either they went into it too early or there wasn't a symbiotic relationship. I'm working with a guy currently in Humansdorp, and he does biltong and he's doing well, but the partner is in Joburg and he's not involved in the business, and it's,
if the partner is a financial partner, then you have to say, well, you didn't have the money, so you needed the money. How do you then either grow to the point where you can buy yourself out of that partnership and give him return because he wants return on his investment, and then then you can be a sole owner again. But I think when you're talking about partnerships that are symbiotic, there has got to be very, very high levels of trust involved. You can't have a partnership where you're looking over your shoulder all the time. If you're looking over your shoulder, it's time to end the partnership.
Sure.
So you need very, very high levels of trust. And there are people that thrive in that environment, but that's why they thrive, because there is that high level of trust. And it's always about how does each partner make the cake bigger than what he takes out? Because then he's contributing to the partnership.
Yeah.
If he's not contributing and he's taking more, then the other guy's soon going to say, but listen, my cake's getting smaller here. Then it's not working. So there's got to be, that healthy relationship where you're thinking with one mind, if you like, as partners.
So you're a veteran in business. You've walked a road. You've done quite a lot. Let's say you're sitting in a room full of young entrepreneurs, and they want to hear what you have to say. You know what's going on in the country. You know the economy. You've made mistakes, which I'd like to hear about. But what do you tell the younger guys like me on business generally? What principles, what lessons do you teach them that can empower them to do better than what you've done in any business?
So I think young people today have advantages and disadvantages. The advantages they have is that technologically they are a lot more with it than we were back in the day. When I started my business, the first computer that I had, I borrowed from a friend. It was an Apple, and the screen was the size of a packet of 30 cigarettes. And you put a 77K floppy disk in the one side.
Should have kept that, actually. Would have been worth a lot.
And you put another 77K. Now you got a phone that's got 250 gig. I mean, it's like insane. You know, so you got a big advantage there.
Technology.
All
right.
And your ability to use the technology. But I think
so you're saying to them, learn how to use technology and take advantage of technology.
So look, I think with just as you are, you know already to a large extent.
All right.
Okay? You might have to learn certain programs and stuff like that, but that's another game. Okay, so I think that from a connected point of view, the young people have got a big advantage. I think the disadvantage that they have is that they are too academically schooled and not.
Wow, that's interesting.
And not technically schooled enough. So, things don't happen on a computer. Computers don't put cool drink into a bottle. There's a lot of other technology that happens there, and it's how do you understand that technology? I mean, if you're a motor mechanic, you leave school, you got to start from zero to become a motor mechanic.
That's true.
There's very little skills from a practical perspective that you're learning at school. I think that also part of the academic side that misses people is, I mean, there's hundreds or thousands of different occupations that are out there. How does school introduce you into what you think you might like? And how do you then know what you're interested in? Because you can't do what you don't love. If you don't wake up in the morning and you are inspired, you can't stay in bed anymore. You got to get up. You got this thing to do that's worrying you, that you didn't finish yesterday. And it's like you are animated about it. You understand?
Yeah.
And you're prepared to work 16 hours a day to get this thing to work, whatever it is. You understand? Then you're not going to, 9 to 5 is not going to cut it. Because in a world of how many billion people? 7 billion people?
7.
Okay. How do you differentiate yourself from somebody else? How do you climb above somebody else? If somebody else is 9 to 5, you either got to be very smart to do a lot more between 9 and 5 than the next person to really get an edge, or you got to put in the time.
Yeah.
And it's like they say, you know, any skill is a 10,000 hour learning curve, you know. And how do you get 10,000 hours behind your back? You know, 9 to 5, it'll take you how long?
Yeah.
You know, if you're putting 16 hours a day in, it's going to take you a lot shorter. And by doing that, you get the edge, you get knowledge, you get experience, you get all of those kind of things. But you must have the ability to assimilate that knowledge and to take it to the next level. You know, like I might take 20,000 hours to learn a particular skill. Somebody might take 10.
Yeah.
Now, you know, if you don't, just because I'm made like I'm made and it takes me 20, I'm going to have to put in double the time to catch up to the other guy.
Yeah.
So I think this is a lot of young people, you know, want instant gratification, and they've got to understand that, you know, that doesn't work.
Yeah. So take advantage of technology, you said. The part about the skill, I like that because it's very important, you know, and bridging the gap between the practical know-how of, what is taught in academia and theory and practically what is needed outside.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know. Then you said, do what you love. I find that such a cliche saying, you know, because I'll tell you why before you say it. Because a lot of people are, you know, I just spent yesterday driving to Maclear and I was just doing a training there. And when I look at South Africa and the amount of people that are jobless and all of that, and I think to myself, and by the way, I also believe in that, you know, you got to do what you love. But my approach is sometimes, and maybe I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, sometimes you got to do what you don't love at the beginning so that you can have a chance to do what you love later because of where we are. So you've got to do what you have to do. I'm not sure if that makes any sense, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be what you love, particularly if you're in a bad situation. And
So what's stopping you from doing what you love?
Most people, money. Because what they love doesn't pay. Because what they love doesn't pay, and they got to pay the bills.
So, I think, I mean, you can't say that I love golf and I want to make money out of golf, but you're a 24 handicap.
I don't know golf, but yeah.
Yeah, 24 is kind of like me or worse, or better. Yeah,
Okay.
Slightly better. But you know what I'm trying to say? You can't be a Tiger Woods if you're not a Tiger Woods. And unless you that skill level in that space, you probably going to struggle to make money. Or I'm exaggerating. There are a lot of people on the circuit, but I mean, there are a lot of them that don't make money either. You understand? So there are certain things that whether you love it or not, you either got the skill to do it or you don't have the skill to do it. So that's going to determine whether you can pursue that career. There's also something that people sometimes take for granted, and that is that they think that anybody can be an entrepreneur. Now, I'm sure that you've come across this. Not everybody is an entrepreneur. It's kind of like a bit of and I don't want to, I don't want to sound different, but
Say it.
it's kind of like you're born with it almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's something that to a certain extent you can't teach. Like, some people are made to be an employee. They need the guidance and the leadership. Point them in the right direction and they fly. But if you burden them with the task of making decisions that they feel ill-equipped to take, you land up in a situation where nothing happens and you spiral downwards very quickly. So I think the first thing about a room full of entrepreneurs is to say, have you sorted the wheat from the chaff? Are they really entrepreneurs? Are they the next Elon Musk out there? Or, or spa owner or whatever.
Yeah.
You understand? And once you've gotten past that, you can build that individual by giving him the skills required. Okay? But you can't start with somebody that doesn't have that ability and think that you're going to make, a rock star out of them. So I think that is very important.
I think the element that you're adding, which I like, just based on what you were saying now about doing what you love, is you're saying you've got to be good at it. Is that what you're saying?
So I think
there has to be a skill.
I think you become good at the things you love because you're prepared to spend more time doing
Got you.
it. You understand what I'm saying? You're not necessarily born that way. You'll have that inclination towards something, but you become better at it because you love doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
Have you read Good to Great by any chance?
I'm dyslexic, so I don't read much.
Is
But
it?
I watch a lot of YouTube, and I get a lot of my information from, what I think are thought leaders and so on. So I'm not a great. I've heard the book about the book a lot.
Okay.
Yes.
I haven't listened to it or anything.
No.
But in the book, like Jim Collins speaks about one of my favorite concepts that he speaks about is this concept called the hedgehog concept, right? And he argues that there are three important things that make good companies become great companies. So he says, number one, it's the companies that do what they believe that they can be the best at the world at. Number two, it's the companies that do something that they've got a great passion for. And number three, it's the companies that do something that, I'm forgetting the third one. It's
Probably fills a
passion.
need.
It's not the need. It's the something that has great economic returns. So he says if you find the intersect between those three, you're in business. And I'm thinking of that based on what you just said about doing what you love and But I was just thinking about that that concept.
So look, I think also there are cycles. We did exceptionally well for about a 10-year period, but then that
Twizza or the other?
No, Twizza.
Twizza.
Yeah. But then the gap got filled because other people saw that there was an opportunity there as well. So then you want to be established.
That's true.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So you want
Then
to be
we started seeing all these other brands.
Yes, exactly. But then you need to be established and on your feet and better than them, etc., etc., etc. And it's always about that. Even when the margin of difference becomes relatively small, it's always about, are you better than the next guy? And how do you differentiate yourself?
So 2021, you stood as a mayoral candidate.
Yes.
And I saw some videos. I was watching some videos. Everyone knows what has been happening in Enoch Mgijima municipality. If you don't know, I think we'll just put a link on the video of one of the articles. That 15 million rand stadium thing is out of this world. It's horrific. And I'm sure it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Tip of the iceberg.
So I'm interested to know from you. One is this whole concept of being too politically exposed in business, right? I spoke to someone that has now become a politician. She's a member of parliament. and she ran a similar business to mine in Joburg for a long time. And as soon as she entered the political space, she lost a lot of clients because clients were saying, these are corporate clients. Clients were saying, you're too politically exposed. Because you're in politics and you're speaking against everyone, it's affecting the relationship. And so you now transitioning and taking that political activism and being out there, have you not, been too politically exposed? And doesn't that put your businesses in jeopardy to a certain extent?
So, first of all, I'm not a politician.
Okay.
I'm a businessman. And I have significant investments in this town, as do many other people. I'm not the only person with significant investments in this town. Every homeowner in this town has, if your home is your biggest asset,
that's an investment.
You have a significant investment. And if we as citizens aren't going to do something to try and change what is wrong, then who is going to do it? And I think we're sort of coming to the maturity of our democracy. If I look at where the GNU is, and actually, I just got back from a bush trip, and I was doing some DIY and doing some shopping, and I parked next to
You had an interesting era of your life. You look like you're enjoying life.
I am. And I parked next to this guy who obviously recognized me. I didn't know him.
Yeah.
And he's sitting in his car, and he's got an ANC T-shirt on. And he says to me, guys, and I
This is very good. I didn't know you could.
and so we had a little conflab, and I said, no, it's all
What
going.
case is that?
No, to dissolve this municipality.
Oh.
Yeah. It should be.
Is it a case that you brought?
Yes. It was heard on the 5th of September, but was postponed. I think it's going to be now the 14th. I haven't got confirmation of that yet. But the bottom line here is that it's not about me. It's not about my businesses. Yeah. It's about the communities out there, and it's about the people out there. And you can only do what people want you to do at the end of the day. I can't say, I am going to do this. We made a difference then, and I think we shocked the system a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think we're going to have a GNU type moment.
Okay.
Where we say...
Locally.
And I think it's overdue. And I think many people think so. And I think that the last election has just kind of concretized that, if you like, and said, well, why can't we work together? Why do we have to carry on like this, And to get back,
you got a seat, right?
Yeah, we got 7.
7?
No,
I only thought you got one seat.
Yeah. No. Well, we got 1 in the district and 6 in.
Okay.
So anyway, bottom line is, I heard a really interesting comment from a United States citizen, a financial guy there that I follow quite a bit. And he said that when he looked at his tax bill and he looked at what he was receiving for his tax bill, he realized that California was not deploying the capital responsibly. And he decided to move out of California, as if you follow any American, there's been a lot of that happening. So really it's about the allocation of capital, And if you're in a municipality and you're taxing, or your tax revenue is X, if you want to be and remain relevant in that space, you got to say to yourself, well, how do I deploy the capital which I have sensibly? And spending 15 million rand on defunct stadiums is certainly not deploying capital responsibly. I even, took up the Figila Guadana Road story, you know. It's supposed to have cost 105 million, and I believe it's cost even more than that.
Sure.
For 6.7 kilos. Now, we've been without electricity in the greater parts of the city center for up to a month at a time because of infrastructural issues. Now, ask yourself the question, has our capital been deployed responsibly?
Definitely not.
There you go. So if you, and why is that happening? Is because we don't have the right people in the right places. And until that message lands, and until we understand that until you fix that, the situation is not going to change. You can make all the noise you like.
Yeah.
But if you do not have the ability of people to understand priorities and to be able to deploy capital in the most frugal manner possible, then frankly, we're stuck here.
I don't know, because, 2020, 2021, in Komani was becoming famous for all of those big protests
Yes.
that were taking place. I would have thought that would have translated on the ballot, and the people of Queenstown would have voted these people out.
Trust. A mind shift in trust. And I think that it wasn't there then. And trust is not something that you go and pick up off a shelf. You have to earn it. And I think that there were barriers to evaluating people and racial barriers, to be perfectly honest, too. It's difficult. I mean, let's be, we've got to be frank.
Yeah.
It was difficult for some people to make a transition. And that's really why we, stood, is to try to get more people to not vote ANC and vote to the opposition. And I think what has happened in the last election is that taboo is probably less than it was. Let's put it that way. Am I right? I mean, I'm kind of like surmising, but I mean, that's what I'm seeing. You understand?
Yeah.
So, and the minute we can move past that, and we can move past the point where we say, so who's the best person for the job? How do we appoint the right people to do the right things? Because that's what, and it's not about me, it's not about you, it's not about this individual, it's about us.
Yeah.
Because really, all a municipality is, it's a business that the community puts together to do the mundane functions that you don't want to do yourself. I think that's about as simply as I can put it, So if we can, just decide that's what we want, we all want, and you limit the amount of wants, because if you look at the wealthy people, they start getting medical aid for their dogs, whereas some people don't even have medical aid, So let's reduce our number of needs that we want, and put the hierarchy of needs in the right order, and fix what needs to be fixed. And I think you'll see a lot more people that are much happier.
Doesn't that put your businesses?
Why would it? Is that not logic? Is it not common sense? If you speak the truth, why should it be contentious?
Because of the type of country we live in, and because of political killings that take place, and because you've got a government that can manipulate a system to
Are we accepting that?
ostracize you and to keep you silent, and they can say, "Oh, okay, that one." It's,
you say
don't
that.
you think about that?
And there's two sides to that coin. Yes, there might be some sort of animosity as far as that goes, But when you've proven that you are talking sense,
Sure.
you're being logical, you're being pragmatic, I can't be anything else. That's who I am. I walk a very fine line. You know, it's either right or it's wrong. And if it's contentious to me, I'll stay away from it. You know, and I have stayed away from, you know, just making a noise for making a noise's sake. You know, my time is valuable.
Yeah.
You know, I'm happy to part with my time, but I want to make a difference.
Gotcha.
You understand? I don't seek to be confined by political ideas or duties, if you like. I will walk in and I'll say, fine, let's put a team together. This is what we need to do. Let's fix what needs to be fixed, and we move on. Because then those people who you put there, they must do the job. I'm not going to do the job. You know, I'm just one man, you know, and it's a lot more than one person. But I think that, you know, if we all realize that we actually want the same thing, you want peace and security, you want electricity, you want water, you want this, you want a clean town, you want respect for one another. We want the same things, guys. We want the same things, essentially. And the minute you want something that you can't have from somebody else, then you got to take a long, hard look in the mirror and say to yourself, you know, why should you deserve that when you're not granting that to somebody else?
Yeah.
Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think it's just being pragmatic, eh?
Why couldn't you join the other
So I think
opposition parties?
I think
there's the DA. There's what other opposition parties are here locally? UDM and
there are a couple of splinters, and that's probably the problem that we have in this country, to be honest. So really, the motivation for that is to say that at that point in time, and I think things are different now, at that point in time, it was too much of some people who are ANC supporters were vehemently anti-DA, let's say, for instance. So all you're doing is giving them another opportunity. You're still opposition.
yeah,
I have no issue in working with anybody as long as we share the same philosophy. You understand? And I think this is where it comes down to a GNU type situation where you reduce the number of things that you are wanting to prioritize, and you concentrate on fixing them before, you know, doing the peripheral stuff, if you like, you know, and fix the big ticket items, you know, choose 5 items. That's what they say in business, you know. If you've got a problem in any area in your business, pick the top 5 things, top 5 costs in that item, in that space. And how are you going to deal with them? What's going to make the meaningful difference? What are you going to change that's going to make the meaningful difference? It's exactly the same in this situation in politics. Fix the big 5 first. And if you concentrate and prioritize them, because you can't fix 120 things. So concentrate.
make 120 promises.
You see, you know, that's just leading to trouble.
Yeah.
You know, fix 5 and then take the next 5. And so you go.
2026, your plans? Still thinking about it.
Look, I think there's some water that needs to flow on the bridge. We'll see where the court case goes. I think there's opportunity. And I think it's time to have mature discussions about where do we want to go. You know, we have a very disgruntled community who's not happy at all. And I think I will be proven correct in making that statement. Some might disagree, but I think the most will agree. So then, if we all mostly agree, how do we fix it? And the problem is that you need leadership, and you need people to want to stand together and to achieve a common goal. So I think what's happening in Tshwane at the moment, for instance, is a disgrace, and it should never have happened. And we can't allow
Removing the mayor, you mean?
yeah, and just the way that it was done and all of that, and now the backbiting.
Was it not just a motion of no confidence?
Is it?
Or is it something you know that I don't?
Yeah, I think you need to do some research. Eh? But yeah, you know, at the end of the day, it's an opportunity. But you know what? If you don't work at making the opportunities work, they will not happen.
So you'll definitely be standing again 2026, you say?
So I will definitely be influencing what's happening. There's no doubt about that. You know, because we need to. We need leadership.
Still the independent candidate's route, or?
I'm not fixated on anything. I just want to make it work. I'm not a politician. I do things for a reason. It must work. Come to me with a opportunity or a structure that's going to fix the problem, and I will review any opportunity that comes that way. I'm not a politician, but if I can contribute meaningfully, because I know how to run a business, and a municipality is actually the simplest business in the world to run because there's no opposition. So it shouldn't be that difficult. You understand? So let's see where we go.
Yeah. Let's talk a bit about money and you know, the mindset that someone like you would have that would be different to a mindset of a person that hasn't been through similar experiences when it comes to money. And I was just thinking as you were speaking about, I'd wonder how you and some of your friends interact in a room and what goes on in those conversations, you know, and what some of your friends say to some of the things that you are saying, you know, whether they are saying, hey, you should keep quiet and just look after your business interest, or, you know, maybe, I don't know if you have anything to say on that, you know, some of your friends.
So for me, once again, it's to be pragmatic. If I don't have a town, I don't have a business. You understand? So if I see the town is under threat, I see my business is under threat, I must try and make a difference. And it's not just me that it's under threat for, it's many other people. You understand? So I think there's a general acceptance in my circles that is a fact. We might differ marginally on how to solve it because we're not even there yet. We're not even having that discussion. But I think, you know, when you talk about money, and I think you want to differentiate between money and wealth.
Yeah. What's the difference?
You cannot earn wealth. You can only earn money, but you can create wealth. Wealth is something that's long-lasting. It's a value of a business. Now, once again, it's about adding value or destroying value. Okay? We, as South Africa, have in the past 10 years destroyed the value of our money. I think, just stop and think about that. You know, 10 years ago, the rand was trading at what? 12 to the dollar? Now we 17.50 to the dollar?
Yeah. 1780, I think.
Up and down from there, yeah, you know. And so what has happened? In that period, we, as South Africans, have destroyed the value of our currency to the point where the things that we have to buy from overseas have increased by 25 to 30%. Now that's destroying value. Creating value is if your currency becomes worth more than an opposing currency, then you are increasing the wealth of your citizen because the house that you live in is now worth more. You know, everything that you have is worth more. So, and it's about how do you create value and how do you create wealth goes back to how you allocate capital. You know, the sensible allocation of capital is going to create wealth and create value. Do you follow what I'm...
Yeah. Yes.
And this is not contentious.
Yeah.
This is fact.
Yeah.
It's simple maths.
Yeah. You know, maybe two more questions.
Yes.
One would be, I'm really interested in knowing how you think about wealth and money that differs from how a person that is not where you are, maybe if I can say, put it another way, that's not wealthy. I'd like to think that you're a wealthy person, right? So how do you approach wealth, and how do you think about it, and how do you look at it that differs from a person that might not be there yet, and how they sort of approach and look at even how they deal with their money? Maybe let me ask you it like this. So what are some of the things that you do now that a luphumlojoka, who was an up-and-coming person that's not where you are, that needs to learn about money now in order for him to be where you are in the next 10 or 5 years? I'm not sure if that makes sense to you.
Yeah. I think the most important thing is you need to delay gratification.
Okay.
Which means you need to save your money.
Yeah.
And you need to build wealth. Because you can spend the money, but you can build wealth. Once you spent the money, you don't have wealth. You understand? So delayed gratification is something that young people are not good at.
Right. So don't spend quickly.
Across the board.
Okay.
Okay? We live in this society where you want something today. Online, delivered in 2 days' time. That's the game.
Yeah.
You
Have you heard of Temu, by the way? Do you know
Yes,
Temu?
I know. I bought one or two little things. But it's small things. Because I don't trust them yet. So I don't know if I'm going to get a pig in the poke, as they say. So yes.
Delayed gratification.
Delayed gratification is probably the most important thing that young people can do today. Because by doing that and building assets,
Okay.
building productive assets, you know, buying buying an expensive car is a liability. It's not an asset. Because it costs you money every month. It costs you more than buying a not expensive car. So therefore, it is gratification in a way, because it is more than what you need to do your job, if you like, or to go from A to B.
Yeah.
And, you know, what I did as a businessman starting out, I obviously didn't have money. So I would finance assets. But I financed every asset over 3 years.
Okay.
The first thing I ever bought on HP was at 27.5% in the inflationary years of the 80s. And that was really brutal. I couldn't buy another asset until that one was paid off because of that debilitating interest rate. Okay? And then I continued to buy assets, and I paid them off in 3 years. And the philosophy was, I must pay this asset off and get it generating revenue, which will allow me to buy another asset.
And that's what you mean by productive asset.
Productive assets. You understand? So if I buy a delivery truck, you know, that's a productive asset. If I buy a motor car, it's a non-productive, it's a liability. You know, so that's what you need to do. That's this, and it becomes a cycle, and it becomes part of your culture.
Yeah.
You know, it becomes a you. It's a you thing. And you eventually, you feel the effect of making the right decision. It becomes tangible to you because you can see what you can do more every year because of how you've managed your past years.
No, that's exciting. I like the part about productive assets and buying productive assets. I think it's really, really great advice. So now you are semi-retired. You were just saying you're semi-retired. What do you do? How does your day look like? I read that you enjoy flying,
Yes.
flying yourself. So have you got your own, aircraft? Does it mean like you fly yourself to a PE if you want, or?
Yeah, I fly a lot, and probably less now because I've got time. And but I do fly a lot, and I love it. Because I'm a busy person, and I'm always got something to keep me busy. It means that time is important to me. So if I can fly to Cape Town and be there in an hour and a half, as opposed to either driving or going to an airport and sitting there
So
for
that
an
must be a
hour.
private jet then.
No, it's a turboprop, but it's not a jet. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I like to do that. But I love the bush. I love travel. I love photography. I'm a keen bird watcher, and there's over 950 species in this country, and I've probably only seen about 350 of them. And so it's very exciting when you find something new, and it's building knowledge base, and it's like it's using your skill and using it in another way, if you could say, So
International travel? Do you not
I-
travel internationally?
I do.
Often?
I do. I've done a number of trips overseas, a lot, in fact, and probably the best one I ever did was to Antarctica.
Oh, wow.
That was a special trip. But I love Africa, and Africa and the wildlife in Africa is something special. I want to try and get to maybe Uganda and see the gorillas. So that's on a bucket list.
And working with your sons, how is that? Working, family business type of situation. How
It's a privilege, eh?
is it?
It's a privilege to have your sons interested in what you've done. So I think it's a massive privilege. And, there's always the odd challenge here and there. But, we sit down.
How do you sort out how do you sort out your disagreements? And
You just got to be pragmatic. It's numbers at the end of the day. It's being sensible. It's doing the right thing, and working for the common good of the family and of all the people that work for us, to be honest.
Yeah.
They keep you honest, So, and, people learn to trust you because you keep your word. It's important, very important.
Yeah. Mentors, do you have any? People that mentor you or that have mentored you in the past? Or?
That's probably being the most difficult thing about being in Queenstown is that you're probably one of the taller trees. And so I wasn't surrounded by people who could mentor me, but I used my accountant a lot as a sounding board. And I even used my team a lot. I'd come up with an idea and I would bash it around and hone it and, sharpen it. And when I think I've got it the way that it should be, then I'd move on, And you make good decisions. You also make bad decisions.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of things. You can't be right all the time. And when you're wrong, you must accept that you're wrong, and you must man up to it. And you say, fine, I'm going to fix it. Let's move on. You know.
Thank you very, very much for your time. Thank you for the conversation. You've got a beautiful facility. I mean, I'm from the Eastern Cape, and it's actually my first time here. I actually grew up in Middleburg. I'm sure you know. Middleburg.
Yes, yeah.
You know, but we're based in Gqeberha now. So our first time here, and it looks beautiful. And I think you've done like a great, stellar job. And wish you well in your retirement phase.
Thank you.
And I wish you well in your business endeavors too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And I hope somebody can find some value there.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.